Very well. Remember, we're also streaming live on standardmedia.co.ke and on our YouTube channel as well. Talk to us across our social media platforms at Ktn News KE, at Dennis Assetto. Our hashtag is Ktn Prime. Our sign language interpreter is Angel Lois. A little bit later, we shall be having a conversation on Game Plan 2027. Funding politics and taming goons. We shall be having that discussion with Wilberforce Ounda, who is Member of Parliament in Funyula, and David Olesankok Iyala MP, and Joseph Manje, Deputy Party Leader, Jubilee Party. Be sure to be here for that conversation as we look at what different political parties and the strategy as we approach 2027. But now let's go straight to our top story. These are tonight. Former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has completed what he calls a 56-day conclave, where he turned his Wamunyoro home in Nyeri into a political consultation center. He has hosted delegations, political leaders, professionals, clergy, elders, and young people from different parts of the country as he sought to strategize on the 2027 general election. Speaking today, Gachagua said he is ready to back any other opposition candidate that will be picked to face President William Ruto in the presidential race. But even as he spoke at his Wamunyoro home, his colleagues in the opposition held a meeting at Windsor Hotel, Nairobi, where they announced their pledge to support a selection process of a flag bearer to face President Ruto. And as Clement Masombo reports, the United Alternative government outfit said the leaders had made a personal unity pledge and coalition unity agreement that binds all principles to opposition unity. That story will be played to you a little bit later as our teams are in the kitchen cooking, making sure you get it live. Now, the simmering political dispute between retired President Uhuru Kenyatta and his successor, President William Ruto, has continued to spark mixed reactions following Uhuru Kenyatta's response, dismissing claims he was bankrolling the opposition. Unlike in the past, where the attacks were silent, the two political allies turned foes are now trading jabs publicly. As Ian Ktn reports, the rift between them is expected to escalate even further in the coming months.
Once christened the dynamic duo, political allies whose friendship went beyond politics.
His Excellency the President.
However, barely 13 years later, after serving 2 terms together, albeit half of it marred with tension, but lines have been drawn once again.
Nilisaidia sponsor wenu, na huyo sponsor wenu alishindwa.
Mimi sitaki kuitwa sponsor bana, mimi sitaki mambo mingi.
The differences have taken a different dimension. The root cause being the former head of state failing to throw his weight behind President Ruto in 2022. His involvement in opposition politics seems to have angered his former deputy and ally, who has now resorted to publicly attacking his former boss. President Ruto has sustained efforts trying to seek the blessings of his former boss. On December 9th, 2024, he drove to Uhuru's home in Ishaweri and later to his Nairobi office, meetings that failed to bear fruit.
My predecessor had an option to become a statesman, but he chose to climb down and become an opposition leader.
These are signs of panic of the head of state. Let the president not fight shadows. Uhuru Kenyatta is not going to be a candidate 2027. Neither was he a candidate 2022. There is nowhere in the constitution which states that the president cannot comment anything politically.
Beside a retired president, he's a Kenyan citizen. As an individual, he can support anyone he wants, which in essence he did in 2022. And you don't expect him to support you now.
President Ruto's bone of contention appears to be Uhuru's dalliance with the opposition.
When he was asked that, do you have evidence where Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta is playing politics? He referred on the headline of a newspaper that you can check the headline of this newspaper. And it's the same current president who doesn't believe in the headlines of some newspapers. What does not bar the former president Uhuru Kenyatta from being a party leader is what does not bar him also from commenting on politics.
Nyinyi muna lecture retired president. Kazi muko nayo saa hii imewashida. Kazi ya lecture mlianza lini ati nini muna lecture wa viongozi wengine?
Some leaders, including People's Party of Kenya leader Ndindi Nyoro, feels that the former president is unfairly being attacked by President Ruto.
Mambo ya kutukana President Uhuru Kenyatta haikuwa part of the manifesto of this failed Wilbaro government. Mukiona kazi imewashida, you can do Kenyans a favor. by packing your bags and going home now.
However, just a little over 11 months before the country heads to the polls, the recent spat appears to be just the beginning of another supremacy battle between the duo.
Both President Uhuru Kenyatta and our current President William Samoei Ruto should not waste their time in exchanging words. Kenyans are bigger than two of them, and Kenyans decide who becomes the leader in this country.
The war of words between President William Ruto and his former boss Uhuru Kenyatta sets the stage for yet another contest 4 years after the initial one. As to who will emerge supreme between the two political allies turned foes in August 2027, only the voters will decide. Ian Kitane, KTN, Nairobi.
Thank you, Ian, for that report. Now, the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, NCIC, has sent a stern warning to politicians who will not honor summons to appear before them over hate speech remarks. The chairperson of the agency, Dr. Kefa Omai, says the commission will be forced to move to court for warrants of arrest against individuals who defy their summons. The warning comes at a time when some politicians, including DCP leader Gachagua's lawyer, vowed to defy NCIC summons. And as Chris Tairu reports, Mukurweini MP John Kagosha, through his lawyers, has dismissed allegations leveled against him, arguing that his words were misinterpreted.
Mukurweini MP John Kagosha had a date with commissioners from the National Cohesion and Integration Commission to answer to charges of hate speech and incitement allegedly made at a public forum in Nyeri County.
Who is our accuser?
Accompanied by his lawyers, Kagosha, who is also an advocate of the High Court, argued that it will be prejudicial for the commission to continue hearing that case, given that there is still an active case at the Milimani Law Courts.
The document that you served us, and I happen to be one of those individuals who benefits from that language, is not what is presented. So we are lost, and that's why counsel is raising this objection to understand how then we proceed. Granted the fact that these matters have been lodged elsewhere.
On the interpretation, because we already have an interpretation already before the court of law, which, by the way, is also different from what you have interpreted here.
Kagosha, who is out on a cash bill of 250,000 shillings, argued that the charge sheet was defective since it failed to identify the alleged victim.
We demanded for an open session with NCIC, and we want to tell NCIC it's not going to be business as usual. Before you summon people, you must also show Kenyans that you are objective and that you are fair and that you are able to bring on board every Kenyan from every walk of life. And again, also, you must also ensure that the threshold is also met for what it is that you are summoning Kenyans.
The commission will roll on the way forward at a later date. The meeting coming at the backdrop of pressure from the commission to ensure that high-profile politicians honor such summons.
We are grateful that Honorable Kagosha has appeared before the commission. I want to ask the other clients to follow suit. Do not push us to the wall and issue or seek for warrants of arrest and come for you just because you are leaders in this country.
Former Deputy President Gachagua's lawyers have already written to the commission saying that their client will not be available since he will have traveled out of the country from Wednesday this week.
Gachagua kuji huko NCIC. Nyinyi NCIC ndio tunaalika siku ya Tuesday mukuje wa Munyoro, mukuje muone Gachagua.
Can you, in your own volition, in obedience to the, summons and letters which are written to you, appear before the commission? We have to work as a team.
The commission, initiated under the 2010 Constitution, has always been accused of being toothless, having lost all the cases since 2008. Chris Dairu, KTN, Nairobi.
Now, City lawyer Angela Mulwa has this afternoon been rearrested outside the Milimani Law Court in connection with the murder of her stepmother, Dr. Victoria Mutiso. The lawyer was arrested shortly after the Director of Public Prosecutions, Renson Igonga, recommended murder charges against her. Jeff Kirui with the details.
Trouble continued to stalk City lawyer Angela Mulwa as the Director of Public Prosecution now prefer murder charges on her over the killing of her stepmother, Dr. Victoria Mutiso, who was shot dead on July 29th this year while traveling in Nairobi's Upper Hill area.
We now have an information sheet, and the respondent will be charged before the High Court for murder.
State Prosecutor Jalson Makori informed Milimani Magistrate Joan Mati that a murder charge against Mulwa had been filed at the High Court in the morning, a decision that prompted the withdrawal of a fresh application by the Directorate of Criminal Investigations that was seeking to detain Mulwa for 14 days to enable completion of investigations.
The application to withdraw the said application is hereby allowed. This file is closed.
Lawyer Angela Mulwa was rearrested shortly after the court was informed that the state has moved to charge her with murder. The DPP's decision follows allegations contained in the DCI investigation papers, placing Mulwa at the center of events surrounding Dr. Mutiso's killing. Investigators further alleged that Mulwa maintained constant communication with Inspector Kenneth Kipkemboi Sang, a senior police officer whom the DCI has identified as a key suspect in the wider murder and whose firearm was allegedly used in the killing of Dr. Mutiso. Investigators placed Mulwa on a meeting on April 24, 2026, where 300,000 shillings was allegedly paid as down payment for an earlier attempt to have Dr. Mutiso killed. Mulwa is expected to face the murder charge before the High Court on Tuesday, alongside her mother Rose Mbithe Mulwa and brother Chris Mulwa, as well as Police Constable Elijah Kibelion. Also to face the charge is businessman Daniel Mwangi Njoroge, a man alleged to be the driver of the Land Cruiser Prado used in the operation leading to the murder, and boda rider Kevin Ngugi Kinuthia. Jeff Kirui, KTN.
Thank you, Jeff, for that report. Now we go back to our earlier story where former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has completed what he calls 56-day conclave, where he turned his Wamunyoro home in Nyeri into a political consultation center. He has hosted delegations of political leaders, professionals, clergy, elders, and young people from different parts of the country as he sought to strategize on the 2027 general election. Speaking today, Gachagua said he is ready to back any other opposition candidate that will be picked to face President William Ruto in the presidential race. But even as he spoke at his Wamunyoro home, his colleagues in the opposition held a meeting at Windsor Hotel, Nairobi, where they announced their pledge to support a selection process of a flag bearer to face President Ruto. And as Clement Masombo now reports, the United Alternative government outfit said the leaders had made a personal unity pledge, and coalition unity agreement that binds all principles to opposition unity.
What started as a 45-day period of political consultations grew into a 56-day exercise that has given Rigathi Gachagua a different political platform, collecting views from delegates who visited his Wamunyoro home. For the days he operated from his home, Gachagua received delegations from different parts of the country, seeking to understand their political expectations and solidify his support beyond the traditional Mount Kenya support base.
Kenyans told me that this government, which came to power on the claim that it was God-fearing, has allowed churches to become a target of violence. Goons, rogue police officers, and death squads launch attacks on places of worship with impunity. Kenyans saw this violence in churches in Mweki, Kariobangi, Atodo South, and most recently, ACK Cathedral in Nairobi and Kisumu.
On Monday, the final day of consultations, Gachagua announced that if the opposition will not settle on him as a presidential candidate, he will support any other candidate to face President Ruto.
They have told me clearly that in the event that my colleagues persuade me otherwise, that I should not be the single presidential candidate. I should not in any way be the reason why the United Alternative government should fail to have one single presidential candidate. In a nutshell, they have told me that in case I am not picked as the single presidential candidate, I and my supporters must back to a man, whoever is chosen to be the single presidential candidate.
Gachagua said the government has failed to improve key sectors, including education, agriculture, security, and health, which he said has collapsed.
Kenyans from across the country confirmed that our nation's healthcare system is broken. Kenyans want drugs in hospitals. Kenyans told me that they need the next administration to sweep clean the healthcare sector in our country. Access to healthcare is more than just the SHA registration. We must align and implement 6 building blocks of having effective service delivery, a motivated health workforce at county and national level.
It was also during the conclave that Gachagua hosted Safina party leader and presidential aspirant Jimmy Wanjigi, where they discussed about forming next government.
Let me be clear once and for all about what drives me. I do what I do because I have a responsibility to do it. Where I come from, when your heart causes harm, even the harm you never intended, you cannot walk away. You do not make excuses. You apologize and then you do whatever is within your power to make it right. That is exactly what I'm doing. I played a big role in bringing this government into power. It is hurting Kenyans. I'm playing an even bigger role to set it home.
But elsewhere, his colleagues in the opposition held a critical meeting today where they vowed to stick together. In what they called a personal unity pledge, the opposition leaders vowed to work together as one, seek a coalition that will trounce President Ruto in the 2027 elections. The leaders further said they will back a selection process that will pick a flag bearer to face President Ruto. The coalition unit agreement, they say, binds them to a fair, transparent and credible process of picking a presidential flag bearer. They further said no one among them will undermine the selected candidate.
After 56-day consultation, the real test for Rigathi Gachagua now begins. For now, Wamunyoro has provided the conversation. What Gachagua does with the outcome will determine whether the 56-day conclave becomes the political turning point or just another chapter in the long road to 2027. Clement Masombo, KTN, Wamunyoro, Nyeri County.
Thank you, Clement, for that report. Now, the Ministry of Education says it has released 18.51 billion shillings in capitation to support operations of public basic education for third term. This even as education stakeholders say schools are choked with a pile of debt running into billions of shillings. And as Bentura Komboka reports, the stakeholders want a relook into the higher education funding model.
As the schools reopen for the third academic term, learning may resume, but operations continue to be affected by persistent funding shortfall, sinking schools deeper into debt. It is back to school, but not back to normalcy for many school heads across the country. For years, schools have been running on premises, with the government supposed to fund basic operations, the money simply not coming in full or on time.
There is a lot of confusion in our schools because some schools have not received capitations, but what is obtaining is some schools received the 2,900 per student yesterday, and some of them are receiving today. The government should try its best and ensure that money for the learners is not delayed, because that is tantamount to delaying their future.
Already, the government has released 1.4 billion shillings for primary schools, 6.14 billion shillings for junior school, and 10.96 billion shillings for secondary schools. With the disbursed money just a drop in the ocean, the constant piling up of debt by school continues to strain and choke the already underfunded education system. By policy, capitation is released in a ratio of 50 to 30 to 20 across the 3 terms. Every secondary and senior school learner is allocated 22,244 shillings per year. A junior school learner gets 15,043 shillings per year. In the formula, a secondary school learner is supposed to get 11,122 shillings in the first term, 6,673 shillings in second term, and 4,449 shillings in the third term. Since January this year, schools have received only about 16,500 shillings per learner against the full year allocation of 22,244 shillings, leaving a funding gap of nearly 5,800 per child.
It's a very expensive curriculum, but it is good for learners. So the government should invite stakeholders to look at the funding model for both primary and secondary afresh, so that we move in tandem with the costs.
As schools reopen, the question now is for how long they can remain open when the free education burden is quietly shifting back to the parents. Bentura Komboka, KTN.
Time for a break. Coming up shortly, missing fisherman Brian Odhiambo. Thank you for watching Ktn Prime. We continue updating you now. One of the last 6 KWS officers charged with the abduction of missing fisherman Brian Odhiambo has taken a stand today to defend himself. Sergeant Francis Wachira had a rough time explaining why there was no official record of the arrest and the disappearance of the fisherman who went missing in January 2025 after allegedly being arrested inside Lake Nakuru National Park. Wachira admitted that there was an unidentified suspect who escaped from their custody after being arrested and subsequently disappeared, but denied that the missing suspect and Brian were the same person. Ken Gashuhi reports.
On the dock today was Sergeant Francis Wachira of the Kenya Wildlife Service, who led an operation to arrest illegal fishermen inside Lake Nakuru National Park on January 18th last year. This was the same day missing fisherman Brian Odhiambo was reportedly arrested and disappeared amid fears that he may have been killed.
Una ujuzi kuhusu kile kitabu kinachoitwa occurrence book. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Sergeant Wachira faced a difficult time when confronted with questions on Brian's arrest, the alleged escape and subsequent disappearance inside the park.
I need you to check on the entry of the OB entry again. When is the entry after 10:30 made?
16:00.
But you reported the incident at 2 p.m. And that incident did not find itself into the OB book at that time. Is that correct?
Yes.
Some lawyers questioned why, despite the seriousness of the incident, it was only mentioned among additional details by a senior officer. The prosecution believes that this was done as an afterthought when the investigations had begun.
How is it that an occurrence that should be recorded on the occurrence section is finding itself on a column and related to the events on the occurrence section? Isn't there any space kwenda chini where that incident would have been recorded?
There is a space.
There is a space. But for some reason, someone thought that it was necessary now to bring it where it was not recorded. Aiweke pale aipachike.
Wachira insisted that the suspect who escaped from their custody was not the same as the missing fisherman, adding that he had trusted driver Abdurrahman Sudi to guard the suspect alone, owing to his work experience.
Do you give any direction to Sudi to take this person somewhere where he can be confined?
No, Your Honor. We give lawful commands. Na kama ni unlawful command haiwezi fuatwa.
Sudi ameweza kueleza details zote za yule mshikio aliyokuwa naye ndani ya gari.
Aliweza kunieleza baadaye kwamba yeye sijui ni Kilonzo.
Earlier, prosecution witnesses, including his mother and brother, told the court that they had witnessed Brian's assault and arrest by the 6 KWS Rangers, but he was never produced in court. Hearing of the case will resume on 21st of September. Ken Gashohe, KTN.
President William Ruto has cautioned the officers serving in disciplined forces against engaging in partisan politics, urging them to remain loyal to the Constitution, the Republic and the people of Kenya. The president said that the officers must exercise their authority impartially and protect the constitutional space that allows Kenyans to exercise their democratic rights. In a speech read on his behalf by Deputy President Kithure Kindiki during the 27th Pass-Out Parade for Kenya Prison Service cadets at the Prison Staff Training College in Ruiru, Kiambu County, Ruto said the loyalty of security officers should not be directed towards any political candidate, party or interest.
Do hereby swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful.
Every cadet who marched into this parade ground today did so as an individual. In a few moments, they will march out as officers of the Republic entrusted with authority over the liberty of fellow citizens. To every graduate, congratulations. Your authority must never become an instrument of partisan politics. This responsibility becomes even more important as our country approaches the next general election. Your loyalty does not belong to any candidate, party, or political interest. Your loyalty belongs to the Constitution, the Republic, and the people of Kenya. Political competition must never become a contest against peace. Our security institutions must protect the constitutional space within which Kenyans exercise their democratic rights while remaining firmly above partisan politics. Serve every Kenyan fairly. Uphold the law impartially. Carry out your duties without fear, favor, or prejudice. Reject corruption and bribery.
To the recent El Nino phenomenon alert, and Kenyans are now bracing for heavy rains starting in the month of September to the new year. Many parts of the country will be flooded, more so Nairobi city, 65% of it said to be sitting on floodplains. Just how is the city of Nairobi and other parts of the country preparing to handle the heavy rains? Our reporter Ian Zive reports.
Weather experts say the upcoming El Nino phenomenon will be heavy, causing floods, destruction, and even food shortage. The experts say the heavy rains will start this coming September and run through to early 2027. Several counties, including Nairobi City County, have been highlighted as areas that will be hit hard. And today, officials from the national and county governments met under the chairmanship of Deputy President Professor Kithure Kindiki to assess Kenya's preparedness for the expected El Nino conditions and ways of cushioning Kenyans against hunger.
The weather outlook requires us to prepare properly. We are coordinating the two levels of government to make sure that we are properly prepared.
But the biggest concern is not the warning. It is what happens when the rain finally comes. In Nairobi, more than 65% of the city is reportedly to be within a floodplain. For thousands living and working in these areas, heavy rainfall can quickly turn roads into rivers, cut off neighborhoods, and put homes and livelihoods at risk. And Nairobi is not alone. The problem follows the flow of water downstream, affecting parts of Machakos and Kajiado counties.
We are prepared in terms of prepositioning food and non-food supplies to the nearest points possible. We want to disperse before the rains the rains come. All food and non-food relief supplies need to be prepositioned at the regions, at the counties ahead of time.
So the challenge is not simply to respond to floods, it is to stop the same places from flooding again and again. In Nairobi, one part of that answer is being pushed underground through new trunk sewer infrastructure intended to improve the city's drainage and reduce pressure on its rivers.
Even the sewers as we speak, and you will see for yourself, the average size of the trunk sewers that are being built is about 2 meters by 2 meters, internally 1.8 by 1.8. They are 30 years late. They should have been built 30 years ago to support the growing population and to handle the sewage issues, but they have been designed with a 50-year forward outlook.
But the rains will test more than the new infrastructure. They will test whether drainage has been cleared, whether emergency teams are ready, and whether people living in flood-prone areas have been warned early enough. Ian Zive, KTN.
Now, a 32-year-old man in Uasin Gishu County has turned a huge rock in the middle of a forest into a pulpit of love for his mother. For several days now, Brian Kiptoo has endured scorching days and freezing nights atop a rock in Chepkemel village, protesting not for politics, but for his sick mother who is suffering from a rare disease. Elvis Kosgei visited the rock and brings us this unique story of a son's love for his mother.
From a distance, all you see is a Kenyan flag fluttering fiercely atop a huge rock deep inside a forest in Sirat village, Chepkemel in the county of Uasin Gishu. But on a closer look, there's a young man, 32-year-old Brian Kiptoo, who has made this rock his home since 11 a.m. on August 15th. No state function, no government office, just a son and a mission, personal mission.
Nikija kwa hili jiwe, nilikuja kuomba kuomba Mungu wangu kama wale wa Israeli walipokuwa na shida, kwamba wanaenda kwa mlima waombe na kusema nikisaidika na Mungu ama wale viongozi ambao niliwataka nitashuka.
Dan's mother, 54-year-old Ktn, has been bedridden since early 2023, battling motor neuron disease, a rare condition that robs a person of the ability to walk, talk, swallow, and even breathe. Kipto says his mother lived a healthy life until 2021, when he suddenly fell ill and gradually lost her mobility, surviving on nothing but water for more than 120 hours. He's determined to stay put.
Akiwa na hii wheelchair yenye iko hapa kando yangu, tulipata wakati marehemu kuna jirani aliaga dunia ndio tukapewa hii wheelchair. So huwa nikiona sana inanipa huzuni because hata asimio la mama kuwa sawa na wheelchair ambayo tuliomba inanihuzunisha zaidi.
During the day, the rocks become unbearably hot under the scorching sun. At night, it turns cold. But Kipto is not moved. He says he chose this imposing rock hoping his extraordinary endurance will force the country to pay attention to the plight of families like his.
28 years to have a home, what we call a home. Because mama hakwenda kwake. He's just single. Alikuwa anafanya kazi kwengine. To build home na akakuwa disabled immediately. So life from there has not been easy to me. I've been facing a lot of challenges in my life, taking those challenges alone without anybody to consult.
For Kipto, this protest is just bigger than his mother. He says the experience of being a caregiver has opened his eyes to the silent suffering of many families. He now dreams of establishing the Kositany Foundation in honor of his mother intrigues.
Jana tunashukuru yeye akufikiria kusema wacha niende kuanguka kwa mawe juu akufe kuliko sieta asumbue. Sasa ameomba serikali asaitie, alafu asaitie mama yake.
Tema maisha imemfikisha mbali ngumu, ana kazi, akasema kuliko kujiua, akasema akuja aombe msaada kwa viongozi hapa. We call upon our leaders and any well-wisher to come to rescue our friend here, Bran.
For him, this lonely rock in the forest has become a pulpit, the Kenyan flag a symbol of hope, and his endurance a true measure of a son's love. Elvis Kosgei, KTN, Uasin Gishu County.
Thank you, Kosgei, for that report. We sure hope that the mother gets to get the assistance she deserves. Now, tomorrow in Kenya's bold newspaper, The Standard, the story we're looking into, the headline, Inside the Conclave Now. DCP leader Rigathi Gachagua has emerged from his 55-day Wamunyora political conclave with a clear message. He wants to lead the opposition into the 2027 presidential contest to oust President William Ruto, but is willing to step aside if a stronger candidate emerges. The former deputy president says his nationwide consultation exposed a deep anger over the economy, education, healthcare, agriculture, taxation, security, and governance. Be sure to get yourself a copy of Kenya's bold newspaper as we dig deeper into the conclave and many other stories that we have for you. That as well on epaper.standardmedia.co.ke.
Hello there, this is Business Prime. My name is Kelvin Nyakundi. Now, farmers are set to receive further relief on the cost of key farm inputs as the government moves to cushion them from losses, and encourage them to return to production. Now, in a statement by the Ministry of Agriculture, the government is cutting the cost of farm inputs further with fertilizer and certified maize seed, now attracting deeper subsidies. Now, a 50-kilogram bag of fertilizer, which cost about 7,500 shillings in 2022, has been reduced from the previous subsidized price of 2,500 to 2,000 shillings, which is a 73% reduction since 2022. Now we move on to the certified maize seed, where the government is covering half of the cost, bringing the farmer's price down to 150 shillings per kilogram. This means a 2 kg pack will cost 300 shillings from 600 shillings, then a 10 kilogram pack 1,500 shillings, while a 25 kilogram pack will retail at 3,750 shillings from 7,000 shillings. Now, African countries are being urged to harmonize product standards to cut the cost of doing business and boost intra-African trade. Speaking during the African Organization for Standardization Council meetings and General Assembly in Mombasa, KEB's Managing Director Esther Ngare says repeated testing and certification of products at different borders is driving up costs for traders. The harmonization is expected to benefit Kenyan manufacturers and exporters by reducing compliance costs and border delays.
When we test products and we give them certificates as they leave Kenya and they want to cross the borders, the other countries have to retest them and therefore incurring extra cost, which is not necessary. But with harmonized standards under the Africa Organization for Standardization, it means that products do not have to be retested. The same certificate that has been issued in Kenya will enable the product to cross over the borders.
The submitted tariff lines under the Africa Continental Free Trade Area have now been covered at the level of 28%. We know that we have 72% to go that we provide harmonized standard to realize the needs and our motto of one certificate, one standard, one test, one certificate accepted everywhere.
We want to encourage all member states as ASO champions to adopt these standards. Apart from adopting these standards, that means they have to apply these standards in their respective countries. Because once these standards are applied, because they'll become universal, and then it is easier for us to trade amongst ourselves, to facilitate trade from one country to another.
Tea factory officials have been put on notice over the manipulation of green leaf weighing scales, with the government warning that those found short-changing farmers will face the law. Speaking in Bureti, Agriculture Principal Secretary Kiprono Rono noted that the government is tightening accountability in the tea value chain to ensure farmers get the full value of their produce.
Government will not tolerate practices that should change farmers. Every kilo of green leaf delivered by a farmer must be accurately weighted and properly accounted for. I therefore urge farmers to remain vigilant and report any suspected malpractice through the appropriate channels.
Modernizing our factories is critical to addressing aging equipment, rising costs, and global competitiveness, which improves efficiency, tea quality, and competitiveness.
Hii levy ya chai iliwekwa kwa ile upande ya soko, mahali tunahusia majani chai. Na hii levy ni iko na lengo yake, na iliwekwa na wakulima wakati tufanya tea reforms. Na ni percentage 1%, lakini tulikaa na wa Burgendi tukasema wacha tu charge 0.8. Na wenye wanalipa sio mkulima. Mwenye analipa ni yule mwenye ananunua chai kutoka Pakistan, Ujerumani, Uingereza na maeneo yote yenye tunahusia majani chai.
The automatic filtering machine will assist us to process orthodox tea. Currently, we are sharing the one for orthodox and the one for CTC. So thank you very much, because now we'll concentrate on orthodox tea, and we'll have the volume of orthodox tea now will increase.
Right, with that, we've come to the end of this edition of Business Prime. My name is Kelvin Nyakundi. Have a wonderful night.